Can you tell us what it is, United Nations University?
So I had some slides about it as well in the presentation. So United Nations University is part of UN body. We are responsible for acting as think tank in several topics of research, and we are in Portugal. We are focusing on electronic governance.
So when we think about the United Nations, we think about solving like major, problems like global problems about peace and in the world and so on. Do they make, say, at some type of a policy level decision that we'd like to fund research into cryptocurrency? Has that been can you give us some insight? How does that conversation take place? What are they thinking about that?
Well, yeah, certainly. At the UN body, we always focus on how to achieve target. On SDGs target, we have the 24 SDGs target now, and all efforts are aimed to achieve that. Like if cryptocurrency can lower transaction costs, for instance, it will be huge help for financial sector and for other sector to grow up, because maybe financing is still difficult for small and medium enterprise, for instance. So anything that can reduce transaction costs, anything that can smoothen the business processes, especially in developing countries in southern part of the globe, it will be huge help to achieve SDGs. And SDGs are always the key issues. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, is always a key point whenever you talk with anybody from UN.
So have you guys made the connection with the work of Eleanor Ostrom and Bitcoin?
I think it has a strong connectivity, and I think we look forward how it comes to help, especially the poorer people. Financial inclusion is one of the aspects whenever we are looking into discussion in World Economic Forum. They are always talking that this kind of disruptive technology will help digital inclusion in many countries, but we will see, and I think CBDC will be one of policies that can be implemented in some countries, but not for all, for sure.
Is everyone following when we say CBDC?
CBDC, yeah.
There we go. Okay. Let's just let you tell us about your work, in fact.
I used to work at European Commission before in Seville, and we were working on the project called Predictive Insights, or on R&D in ICT. So we are looking at R&D performance of ICT sectors in Europe compared to the US, and we always see that we are lagging behind, primarily because we invest less in R&D in ICT sector. And that is very, very interesting because it relates to the previous speaker who also mentioned that Europe is lagging behind, and we found empirically from macroeconomic data, for instance, that we spend less in investment in computer science, in ICT-related sector, which is compromised with what have been discussed before.
So if I may, I'd like to repeat the question that I asked before. Mm-hmm. It's been policymakers' dream that we would be able to, say, compete with Silicon Valley and strengthen our tech sector, mm-hmm. so that we could be more competitive. And I'm aware, I know that one of the things that we lack really is a funding source. Mm-hmm. And now that we suddenly have this fantastic new funding source through cryptocurrency and ICOs, mm-hmm. why are the policymakers then actively discouraging it?
Oh, tough question. I think policymakers are always thinking beyond. They want exposure, for sure. I mean, they want to be acknowledged by what they are doing. So, as far as I know, they have Edge 2020 since 4 years ago. That Horizon 2020 as the flagship of European Union that want to support especially small and medium enterprises with kind of selection process to make it more easier for small and medium enterprises to apply. But then it didn't really work out in some countries. Like I had, cases in Spain where the process are very cumbersome, and that is probably, they want to be acknowledged with their efforts before anyone else taking over the policy. So that's why probably they're more resistant with with what you mentioned.
They're more hesitant because we
Yeah,
didn't
yeah,
acknowledge
yeah.
them for Horizon 2020?
No. I mean, what I want to say is that they have their own plan, and they want to see this plan succeeded before anyone else taking over. So yeah, that's probably.
They're focused on one
Yeah,
particular
yeah,
policy,
yeah.
so they're not ready for something new.
Yeah,
Is that
yeah,
what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I'm not representing Brussels for sure. I mean, I'm just free person to say whatever came across in my mind during my 3 years at the commission. But that's something I can learn from them. That they want, some exposure on what policies they have been doing. That's probably the reason why.
No, thanks. It's really, really interesting to get your perspective. So let's get the rest of your perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ibrahim. I'm from Indonesia. First of all, I almost turned down this invitation because I'm so scared. So scared to meet, all miners, all engineers, technologists, futurists, whatever. So I thought, Richard, I think I'm not be able to talk in front of those people. But then, okay, just tell whenever you want to tell. Okay, then I decided to come. And this is a topic we're talking about central bank digital currencies, which is quite interesting and ongoing topic right now. But the most important subtitle I want to explain here is the second one, which is a glimpse. Because if you want to listen to the best practice on the discussion related to this, then Richard should invite somebody from Central Bank of Netherlands or BIS or European Investment Bank or the likes. Of course, we put a lot of attention here as United Nations University. We would like to see how will the impact of digital transformation on society, and in relation to that, we also focus on this digital currency, especially released by central bank. So I have 5 actually. Okay, just a bit about us. So UNU-EGOV is part of United Nations body, as I told you, and we are a think tank dedicated to EGOV policies. We are basing in Guimarães in Portugal, very small city, very touristic city. You have to visit us anytime. And our unit is a bridge between research and public policies. So we are working both with academic research at the same time. We are collaborating with several governments in many different projects and collaboration. So this is the old building, which is very beautiful, medieval building. So anytime you are passed by, please visit us. We have been collaborating with several governments right now, from Saudi Arabia, Timor-Leste, Indonesia, Portuguese-speaking countries on different topics, research and collaboration and trainings so far, and we are very happy that despite our age, we are funded in 2015, I think. Now we are becoming more solid with several initiatives, not only with government, but also with other intergovernmental organizations like the World Bank, ITU, RDRC, for several research and activities. So this is what I can infer when I learned about CBDC since a year ago. Anytime when I read paper from Bank of England or Bank of New Zealand or BIS, there are one big chunk which is always missing, regarding the technology. So they're all talking about the monetary impacts of things, the interest aspect, should it be interest-bearing or not, should it be public or not. But technical aspect is always forgotten in all dimensions whenever we are talking about CBDC. So as Karl Popper said, it is very difficult then to achieve a consensus when one big aspect of the implementation of CBDC is always missing. Trust me, anytime you are reading a report from BIS, from Investment Bank, from European Central Bank, technology is small aspect, they discuss. They forgot that it is all about math sometimes. It's about cryptography. And when CBDC is implemented globally, for instance, or nationally, for instance, we forget about education, about educating people that sometimes they don't know what they are doing. Even now, we are still, seeing a lot of discrepancies within the countries, number of transactions, electronic payment that we will discuss later. So what are CBDCs? So CBDC is actually an electronic account at the central bank. yeah, which can be used as a transaction, as mean of transaction, which allows businesses and households to hold balances in central banks. So if you have central bank balance, the debit side and the credit side, then CBDC is one part in central bank credit in addition to reserve. So they have reserve and money in circulation, and CBDC is another type of money which is put in central bank balance sheet. BIS said that actually digital currency is not new at all. Why? Because at current time, commercial bank reserve, so some money which is put by commercial bank at central bank balance sheet is already digital. Yeah, it's already digital. It's not in terms of physical coin. It's already digital. So CBDC as digitally stored has been forever. Yeah, in balance sheet it has been there for forever. But CBDC with particular technology, especially with distributed ledger as we discussed now, is very new. No countries have been implementing, and they're all still in simulation phase. So the best practice cannot be seen now because countries are still struggling to put the best architecture of the system. And hence, by BIS say Bank of International Settlement, by the way, they said that CBDC is a digital form of central bank money that is different from balances in traditional reserve or settlement account, which means that it is already there, but in different technology. Okay, I'm already here. Oh, sorry. Okay, so there are 4 aspects that can distinguish CBDC from coin or from other financial instrument. We can see whether they are widely accessible, whether they are digital, whether they are central bank issued, and whether they are token based. So in monetary term, there are 2 aspects to distinguish that. Token based means that the scrutiny of the money is based on the token, on the artifact, or the object of the coin. While account-based means that the scrutiny of the currency of the account is based on the owner. So ID, the identity, is playing important role when we are talking about account-based, while token-based is more artifact. So in monetary term, coin is token-based. Our saving account is account-based. So that is differentiating different type of possible way of CBDC, which is in the gray area. CBDC accounts for general purpose, CBDC account for wholesale, meaning for commercial bank only, which means that we don't have any access to central bank digital currency, but our commercial bank does have the access, or token-based for general purpose. So there are 3 different types that currently are tested to best illustrate which one is the best one in many countries, and of course it will be different country by country. So and this is from Bank of New Zealand. Currently we have 2 types of physical money and digital money, conventional digital currency and cryptocurrency. This is the most what we have discussed already throughout this evening. There are also conventional digital currency, just like our credit card, a debit card, all transaction card that we have made so far. They are all already digital money, but digital money with distributed ledger technology. There are also fixed currency, which is CBDC in reality, which are still in the testing period, and variable cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and etc. So this is the taxonomy of money which are currently in circulation. Now, what will be happening to us when or if CBDC is implemented? So there are many consequences in positive ways and negative ways. For instance, to 24/7 availability, of course, with cash, we have that. Anytime I have problem with me in Amsterdam, I just call my friend, please help me to give me some money because I run out of money here. No problem. Reserves and settlement balance, of course, not 24/7. You have mentioned bank operation is very limited. The window is very limited. And then we have anonymity. Of course, cash is anonymous unless you are in my country. For instance, sometimes we put our name there, just to, yeah. And then peer-to-peer transfer, meaning that without any intermediaries, of course, with cash, we are peer-to-peer, while in reserve, they are not peer-to-peer because central bank is acting as the third party. Anonymity also doesn't apply for reserve, and 24/7 doesn't apply for the reserve. Now, interest-bearing. Cash, no central bank will give us additional interest by holding cash, but they will give for reserve put in central bank balance sheet. Limits are caps. There is currently in general, no limit or caps. So anytime central bank want to allocate their excess reserve, they can do. In many countries, no limitation. In some countries, they do cap maximum reserve to be put in central bank balance sheet. Now, with the new generation of CBDC, what will happen? This may be the anticipated impact when CBDC is being implemented. 24/7 anonymity, just like cash. Peer-to-peer, interest-bearing, it could be, but in many central banks, they reject the idea. Limit or caps, no limit or caps. And then with accounts, again, the distinction is that account means that ID-based. Yeah, the scrutiny is based on your ID. Of course, then there is no anonymity with account, as well as the similar characteristic will apply if CBDC is released in terms of token. So this is this. And then what will be the benefits and risk? We see that likely to be safer to distribute, and then safer liquid assets, and then it will ensure that public will have legal tender of cash in phase-out condition like in Sweden, and then faster settlement to the end user. Now I need 3 days to transfer my money from Portugal to Jakarta. Lower transaction fees. No, I need at least 50 euros for particular amount I send to Jakarta every month. More anonymity compared to conventional bank card, for sure. So the better aspect is we are more anonymous with compared to other digital currency, digital payment, which is already in the market. And then control currency issued is easier to check. And then the risk, the associated risk is that access limited to niche of users that you mentioned. The richer will be more rich in the future. Setup costs and maintenance costs will be very expensive. If we are talking about internet usage, electricity usage, power, additional compliance and monitoring and vulnerability against electricity, unlike private ones, it is not borderless. So what's the point of having CBDC of Luxembourg, for instance, that cannot be used anywhere except by Luxembourgian in their territory? So there are many challenges here actually to really implement CBDC, especially if you are big or if you are too small. What is the point? Yeah, this is probably these are probably the aspect. So I recall something from basic monetary economics. Anyone from economics discipline? Okay, then I'm happier now, at least. So this is the economics 101, basically how monetary policy applies in reality. So we have this in the upper bound. We have money in circulation, and money in circulation, M0, M1, meaning that if central bank increase amount of money from M1 to M0, or the other way around, they decrease money from M0 to M1, it will impact the equilibrium in the interest rate, any type of interest rate, basically, lending rate, credit rate, whatever. It's all affected by money in circulation. So interest rate is a key and an anchor variable for investment. Yeah, cost of lending, cost of fund will be impacted by how much is interest rate in particular countries. So if you have too high interest rate, then you have high repayment for your principal, which means that investment becomes so expensive. So that whatever happen in money market, yeah, it will impact interest rate, and interest rate will impact a real investment, which is real sector in economy, and at the end it will impact the GDP as all glory and golden standard to show if country is better off or not. So if you see this rationale, then we might be thinking that it is quite reasonable that central banks are worried about cryptocurrencies, because it is like a parallel world that all of a sudden people have another stream of money to finance themselves, regardless whatever the aim are, like for investment, for instance, or simply for speculation. But even that, it's always not desirable for them if there are two parallel systems, and one of both are growing without any intervention and any regulation. So these are usually the locus on how CBDC might affect the transmission mechanism by affecting interest rate in circulation. Yeah. Okay. From monetary perspective, then the benefit of CBDC might be that it can be used as direct monetary policy tool if it is interest bearing. So CBDC equal to cash, but central bank put interest on it. If that is the case, then CBDC can act as a tool for monetary policy directly, because it entitles interest rate. It can be controlled by central bank, just similar to cryptocurrency, but controlled by central bank. Secondly, it ensures monetary policy effectiveness, because the process will be so quick. You know, the transfer process will be quicker than interbank call market, for instance. The risk, the reliance on the wholesale funding market, reduction in bank resiliency, and risk on bank runs. We will see later why this happened. This is the most beautiful part of all of my presentation. I think that what would happen in the future when CBDC are put in place. I don't find the lesser here, but look at 4 players in the economy. The first layer is households. The second layer is corporates. The third layer is commercial banking. And the fourth layer is the central bank. You have now CBDC-A and CBDC-B. CBDC-A meaning CBDC held by the household, the end user, the public like us, while CBDC-B is CBDC held by commercial banking. The most affected one will be the commercial banking one. Why? Because there are 2 components missing in their balance sheet, which is CBDC-B, reducing the value of deposits, and CBDC-B, which is actually going to central bank. So what will happen here? The commercial banks will actually will be having less and less capacity on credit channel. Yeah, because actually central bank act as commercial banking. They just receive the reserve from public in terms of CBDC, which is equal to cash that I mentioned before. So the role of transmission mechanism, especially from credit channel mean this one, yeah, from money in circulation affecting interest rate, from interest rate affecting investment, and from investment affecting GDP. So this process will not happen. Or at least it will not happen as smooth as today's, when commercial bank can be monitored by central bank, and all monetary policies are absorbed directly by central bank, commercial banking.
Sorry to interrupt, but is it just me? I don't understand that assumption. If a central bank wanted to put any type of rules that they wanted, they could actually do with a blockchain something very similar to what they have now. And you're saying that that's not true?
No. Well, what I was saying is when CBDC is really implemented, and as of now, then it will be happening in the balance sheet of us. The balance sheet of 4 actors in the economy. The household, look, our asset will be comprising deposit and CBDC. And then we have, banknotes, which is coin and CBDC. And then commercial banking, they have CBDC as well. This is not belong to us. It goes to the central bank. This amount of money is not in our pocket. It's not in the balance sheet of the central of the commercial banking, but it goes directly to central bank. It means that the capacity of commercial banking to allocate money for real sector will be very limited, especially if CBDC is very attractive. Like for instance, central bank decided to assign interest rate. I will be putting my money directly to central bank rather than to commercial banking, because central bank never collapse and commercial banking can collapse in some countries. That's what I was saying. So it will be more deteriorating than benefiting with this scheme where CBDC, especially when CBDC is interest-bearing asset. So we put our money in central bank reserve. At the same time, we have some return on it.
I would say I would just challenge that maybe someone in the audience could say, I can't immediately come up with a solution, but I suspect that there is a solution to that with the right type of economic rules in a cryptocurrency that could actually fulfill that.
Yeah, it can be. It's very easy. Like for instance, well, this is the worst case of scenario, but in fact, to release money from CBDC from central bank back to commercial bank, it just takes minutes as well, right? Like the first assumption we have. But sometimes, you have to think about technology. Like not all countries will be able to support the system as fast as in Netherlands, for instance. So we are always trying to anticipate the worst thing. The worst thing is that if all money is retained by central bank, in terms of central bank digital currencies, then basically the key point will be commercial bank will have limited availability for lending, for credit channel, for creating investment in real sector. That's the worry. But it could be that the process of changing CBDC back to cash is very quick. In some countries, maybe it's very quick. So, but other countries may take some time as well, depending on the technology and the readiness, education, human capacity, and stuff. So, yeah. Let's go on. Now, European Central Bank declared there are 2 points why CBDC might be key issues in the future. First one is the electronic payment has emerged. So basically, when countries have started to use more electronic payment, then it will be bright future to implement CBDC, because basically it's almost similar. The secondly, technological development may support, which is true. Technological problem is not really problem here, because you guys, you are expert in this thing. And actually, whenever I discuss with technologists, they always say technological problem is not problem in CBDC regime. No, nothing will happen with the system. But also, it's good to remember number of account bankability, number of account across population, which might differ country by country. But look, even we try to compare, it is similar to Michael's presentation before. Even we compare a traditional electronic payment, electronic transaction between countries, we still find a huge gap, between countries. Like for instance, a majority of electronic transaction happen in North America, almost 60% among population over 15. In Europe, it's only 25%. And then we drop to South Asia, it's less than 1%. So the future of electronic payment is still quite blurred, especially in lower per capita countries. And that is corroborated with this, like similarly, electronic transaction is clustered in high-income countries and much less in low-income countries. And this is the reason why CBDC is not actually a key issue in countries where electronic payment is still missing, where people are still not having access, this decent access to commercial banking. It's not the issue yet. Now, and then the disproportion also happened when we disentangle population between the richer one and the poorer one. So the 40% poorer people in high-income countries spend much more in electronic payment than 60% richer in low-income countries. So the disparity is still there. So that I think it's quite challenging as for now, given the disparity between countries, that central bank will be very optimistic to implement this, at least in the next 5 years, maybe. Now, you still remember what I told you about token-based and account-based. If central bank decided to use account-based, as CBDC, as a mean of CBDC, then identity is the most important thing, right? Because the verification of account base is based on identity, while the verification of token base is based on the artifact of the token. So this is still the story from last slide, that transaction. Even in Europe, identity and security is still kind of haunting, inhibiting factor that reduce the volume of electronic transaction in Europe. We see here trust and concern security reasons are still quite worrying. And then if we disentangle between countries, we can see here that identity and security concern on electronic commerce, percent of people never do the transaction is still very, very high, especially in countries like Finland, Switzerland, Spain, Sweden, Hungary, and France. So if we recall back that European Central Bank says, well, electronic payment has been emerging in Europe, in reality, no, not yet. I mean, in many countries, maybe if he's talking about, some countries like here, in the lower graph, maybe yes, but in majority of European countries, concerns are still there. When they are talking about security, or when they are talking about a lower transaction in e-commerce, security and trust are still the reason. Moving back, and this is I forgot. This slide is actually related to what I mentioned before. If CBDC is implemented based on account base, okay, then identity is the key issue here. Unless you have 100% ID circulated in all countries, then you can ensure that CBDC by account base is a solution. But I tell you the story, the fact, what happened in the world. So there are still 1.1 billion people in the world living without ID. It's still huge effort just to ensure the ID availability for all people. And for that, the economic cost of cyber attacks only in Asia is about 81 billion, or about 100 million per day, as from GSM. It's still a huge gap, a huge precondition to be able to go through CBDC implementation. Look at how big is it. The top 5 countries without ID, is just almost the whole entire population of EU. So if you are talking about account-based CBDC, is nothing. It's nowhere. Never be, at least whenever the ID is still a problem in those countries, whenever the central banks are talking about central bank digital currency, it's just BS, not possible. Yeah, because the authenticity is based on the availability of ID, and they're still struggling to get that. This is the last one, basically, which is trying to prove what European Central Bank said, that demand for cash has been diminished in European countries, so that the phase out of cash can be replaced by digital currency. Is it true? Yes, it is true. Yeah, if you compare growth of GDP here and growth of money in circulation, which is M0 in monetary perspective, you can see here that especially Norway, Denmark, and Sweden are countries having negative growth rate during the last 10 years with regards to money in circulation. Yeah, for those countries, CBDC can be an alternative mean to replace cash, because people are getting used with transaction online. They are all bankable. They have the access to banks. But if you're talking other part of the globe, it's still far, far away. It's still far, far away. And the secondly, if we see the crowding out effect, like replacement between two means of transaction of card and cash, then you can see here that Sweden and Great Britain probably are countries where CBDC implementation are in the corner. Sweden has negative cash in circulation since last decade and positive growth of cards, while Great Britain have relatively stagnant card payment and relatively huge growth in card and stagnant cash in circulation. So based on this characteristic, then we can see here that some countries are really requiring, they have to think about the implementation of CBDC, but not for all countries, certainly. I'm almost done. So this is the challenges, remaining challenges. We have internal challenges, the costs associated with the system. Maybe the most feasible feature will be a permission blockchain that central bank is the only one creating money, no miners. Everybody else only involved passively. There are also still problems about value-based or account-based. Also, remuneration, is it zero or positive? We have discussed before, is it zero like cash or positive like reserve? And they have different consequences with those options. And then we have also external aspect, inequality across countries. Like, I don't know if people in Romania or in Jakarta, in Indonesia, for instance, elderly, they have public CBDC and they don't know what they are doing. It's all about math. No one to ask. I cannot imagine what will happen. So it takes a long process to go there, yeah, to understand what is cryptography. Well, 250 million people like Indonesia, which have different level of education, all of a sudden no cash in circulation, only CBDC. I don't think it will happen. At least in the next 15 years, 20 years, it will never happen. So to close my remark, as pseudo-economist myself, I'm not fully economist. I used to be monetary economist. I support President of Germany central bank that at the current moment, it is still the most important thing for central bank is to ensure what they are doing in traditional way. Yeah, just to ensure that price stability, exchange rate stability, interest rate stability are achieved, and then they think about other things, about CBDC. Not very reactive about this without understanding the underlying factor, which is still somehow is still far away, especially for countries where demand for cash are still very high, and the replacement of cash with electronic payment, electronic transaction is still very slow in developing world. So, yes, thank you very much. Yeah.
Let's take some questions, a couple of them.
Okay. You're mostly talking about replacing national currencies with a CBDC or some kind of digital currency. Have you done any research on there being a phase where there is both cash or both a traditional currency and a digital currency in place at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So there is some kind of transition period where you could migrate like this.
Very interesting. We actually did some kind of not simulation yet, but possible simulation happened. Like we made like simple analysis in Portugal. Like for instance, you are a civil servant, and then you will be asked by your HR, would you like to receive your salary in CBDC or in cash? Well, if CBDC is interest bearing, then maybe I will choose CBDC. The coexistence is still possible, but the problem is how to acknowledge CBDC. Is it interest-bearing or not? That is big question. Because if it is interest-bearing, meaning that you put your money in central bank, you get extra payment, it's extra interest from that, it means that there are also two money markets, two type of inflation. Yeah, it's not easy to control because basically you are selling, you are supposed to sell one product, but now you have two products with exactly the same function. So the problem regarding interest bearing, yeah, in addition to technology, anonymity, and stuff, to me is the most important thing. Whether we assign zero interest, which is what's the point of zero interest then? It will not attract anything. But if you put a negative floating interest, there are also risks associated with the options on whether the central bank decided to put interest or not on CBDC. So I agree with you that coexistence may happen, but it is like you have two markets at the same time. Like I told you, sometimes I want to get the salary in terms of CBDC because it's fluctuating, the interest is going up, but sometimes I need cash. So I think it will be a little bit mess at some point.
More questions?
Thanks. So I quite often I work in Kenya, and their mobile money is very prevalent, and I don't know whether the electronic payments reflected or accounted for that, but how that might be a segue into those kind of, a step into CBDC.
Yep. Good question, and surprisingly, it happened to me when I was invited by one of central bank in Asia. They are talking about all, blockchain-based digital currency, and all of a sudden they are talking about, oh, how about M-Pesa in Kenya? And it's totally different thing. Like, why M-Pesa emerged? Because the bankability is so low. Like, no one have the access to bank. And then, the requirement to have M-Pesa is also killing sometimes from regulatory perspective. If you go to Kenya and you see how much Safaricom own the subscribers, almost 90%, and that never happened to any country. So if you have M-Pesa in Kenya, it means that the telecom sector is actually monopolized by one or two operators, and these are not good signal for the healthiness of the ICT sector as well. So I agree with you that M-Pesa may be one indication that people are more into digital transaction, but at the same time, there are huge difference between this type of electronic payment and electronic money and that M-Pesa.
Next.
Very interesting talk.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to understand a little bit of your slide about the decent. I think this is where you pointed out there was a decent intermediation of the commercial banking sector, and that disintermediation is basically also a very good way, if I understand, to for a money supply management type of strategy to be more impactful on controlling the money supply. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So my question. Yeah. So my question, in terms of this crypto.
The speaker's there.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, we're better. So my question, in terms of this this digitalization of the balance sheet, etc. How you think the early adopters? Once more, you think that would be Sweden, countries where there is an actual adoption already of digitalization? Why people are asking here basically, why wouldn't we be in the model of telecom in Africa, where people went straight to cell phones rather than going through all the intermediary steps, rather than going through banking? As a bankerization rates going up, and then going to a state where there is more electronic payments, and then more readiness for adoption. Why don't we kind of jump a step ahead?
Yeah. I think the case in Kenya cannot be used globally to mimic what happened with CBDC in the future. I mean, in the case of Kenya, it's simply that I mentioned to you before. It's just lack of bank access. If you see the statistic, maybe 15 or less people are having bank account, which is much less than probably anywhere else. I have to double check. I just came out spontaneously. So I think it's a little bit different to the case in Sweden, when the implementation of CBDC is basically because cash is phased out and government is convinced that CBDC will be able to replace the use of cash, and people are happy with the initiation of e-krona. So I think that's two different angles in this aspect. But regarding your question, as I mentioned to you before, I just expressed the worst thing happen. Like, if you implement CBDC and people at commercial banking are really into trusting central bank, then there is nothing available for credit channel, because no point of spending money on real sector which has some fluctuation, rather than putting you on risk, you put your money on central bank. Yeah, in addition to reserve, which is also interest bearing, you can also put it in CBDC, which could also be interest bearing. So that probably, to me, as support, I'm a real supporter of credit channel in transmission mechanism, and I see in some countries it might be affecting. Like in Indonesia, for instance, most of our investment are funded by commercial banking. I cannot imagine if the number of liquidity of commercial bank.
Funded by ICOs?
Oh yeah, if it's still.
What you're saying is that what you're saying is basically the intermediation process that commercial bank used to do is basically coming there and giving you the loan.
Yeah.
What if today with the ICO platforms, etc., and this I think joins the previous presentation, is how
You mean from private sector?
Yeah.
ISO from private
for
sector.
small and medium businesses.
Okay,
Indonesia, for example, micro businesses makes up 90% of the economic. So what if these guys, instead of going to a bank, can go to an institution that helps them raise money, but with less intermediation, with less aggressive interest rates, with etc. In a model that was described earlier.
Okay.
And I think the reaction of
The private sector, I'm sure, will be happy, because they have alternative source of funding. Central bank might not be happy.
Of course not. Especially not the
Because,
Indonesian central bank.
because they are. It is their role to promote the central bank policy of transmission mechanism, and you are interrupting in between in their work. I mean, people will ask their salary to be cut down because their function becomes so unrealistic because of your function. Yeah. It's,
So I have a question, basically follow up his question, because you call that a worst scenario, and I really asking myself, is it really a worst scenario in the sense, what about the possibility of accumulated effect of different pieces of technology that grow together? I mean, we're only talking about one scenario and one technology. What about all the technologies come together? And also, the central bank, as a central bank, doesn't exist for that long human history anyway. And if you look at the history of banking, central bank really is just a role for very modern history. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that it will exist for the rest of human history either. So is that really something that's so bad that should not be happening? Or is that something that actually unavoidable and should be happening?
Discussing all the concept of risk-free interest rate. You know the concept of risk-free interest rate.
I would say that really it depends on which country you are talking about. And I'm not in the capacity of monitoring the whole 198 countries across the globe. But I can tell you in my country, in Indonesia, that even with the current system, the commercial banks are quite late. Is it recorded or not?
Yes.
The commercial bank tends to, put their money into extra reserve in the central bank. So they have required reserve, but they put extra reserve because they felt like if I spend to real sector, it will be fluctuated. It will be kind of, uncertainties there. Why shouldn't do that? Why should I do that? So they put the money back to central bank we call it SBI, Certificate Bank Indonesia, we call it. So CBDC will be another instrument that make them lazy in channeling their credit. And I'm sure it doesn't happen to any countries. Maybe some countries, they're very efficient monetary transmission mechanism where this will even help them to be more efficient. Transaction cost is reduced, and everything become more efficient. I don't know. I mean, it will be very much country specific.
So I'm going to throw a question in. This conversation and the questions that we got, I have to say, are really surprising to me. It came in a surprising direction. What I thought we would be talking about is Iran, Venezuela, China. We know that they are experimenting.
Yes.
And what I'm hearing is that they are experimenting with cryptocurrency that is backed by something.
Gold, yes.
Like going back to the gold standard or minerals and so on.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I had we had actually one report on Venezuelan what is Petro?
Petro, yeah.
Yeah, the problem is more on consensus, like between the cabinet, between the House representative. It doesn't found any solution. And this type of innovation should be agreed by everybody, by all stakeholders into politics. I mean, the current Prime Minister, for instance, insisted that it will be backed by gold, by all mining and all natural resources. But if other parties disagree, then it will not happen in reality. So more on, consensus. There are also regulation. There are also political consensus. There are also many non-technical aspects in this.
Yeah, so I just wanted to interject. What I understood is the reason why they're doing that is to prop up their own currency in a kind of a global situation with the three countries, slightly different reasons, but Iran and Venezuela are subject to some type of economic attack by the U.S. And so they need to prop up by backing it with something else. China's reason might be somewhat different. Well, arguably also there's Trump is waging a tariff and so on.
I think the case in Venezuela and Iran may be quite similar. They have been under sanction for a long time, and the value of money has been vanished for a long time, and so that they were thinking by having this cryptocurrency based, it will be helping. But unless the political consensus is achieved, then it will go anywhere. Like what happened in Venezuela, they declare by government, but the House Representative reject the idea, and then surrounding activists reject the idea because of uncertainty, because of anything. But if you're talking about more country in lab temperature, like Sweden, then probably it will be easier to be implemented. But in term oil countries like Venezuela and Iran, it will be more gambling than opportunity. Maybe, yeah.
Well, I mean, they seem to be the first ones there
Yes,
to
the
do
first,
it, but then I understand that there's some
Yeah.
skepticism whether or not they can pull it off, because maybe they are not able to pull off a lot of things. However, then I will just kind of throw in my 2 cents. What I would imagine seeing on the benefits chart, and they might, if they're watching on the live stream or at some point if they're interested, that there might be some kind of really tremendous benefit to them to do that because of the technological or competitive advantage of the knowledge that they accumulate internally. And it could potentially allow some type of stability or immunity from this type of economic warfare. So like maybe the sanctions serve a good purpose. I'll just talk generically. Maybe that there are economic sanctions that would serve a good purpose, but maybe there would be some world leaders that we think are acting irresponsibly. I will name him, Donald Trump, for example, that are waging economic war and causing global damage, and this could be a way of preventing that type of global crisis. So I would like to just kind of throw that out as a possibility. And Bitcoin presents itself as a possible easy way to have a gold standard, and even the architecture that the Bitcoin core has introduced allows, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they allow for a central bank to create a side chain or a drive chain with any type of economic rules or control that they would like. And then it would be backed with the security of Bitcoin.
There probably will be some kind of an equilibrium somehow to be tolerant with what's going on now and what the central bank is aiming. So I agree. I agree with you. So instead of creating it from scratch, like CBDC is created from scratch with a lot of uncertainties, still with question about the interest bearing or not, about the access, about token based or account based, we can rely on what existing private sector has decided and probably some collaboration to see how far they can collaborate. But the problem is in many countries, central bank is kind of, you cannot touch me, like I'm the owner of the whole monetary system. And unless you can communicate with them to compromise and to work together, I don't think chance is there. Because whenever you intervene their function, I mean, it will delimit their function.
Yeah, no one would, I was not suggesting any type of interference with them, and I'm skeptical if anyone would say that they're not already experimenting with this already. I would be surprised if they don't already have conversations with Rootstock and Blockstream I'm not the first one. If I have thought of it, then many other people have thought of it as well. But the advantages are so tremendous.
Absolutely, yeah.
For their doing that.
Absolutely. If you see the promise here, there are many advantages. Like now with traditional transmission mechanism, like for instance, central bank release some money, and then we will wait until 6 months probably to reduce the price of whatever, of rice, the price of. It takes very long in the transmission mechanism from central bank to reach the target. Yeah, it's like two medicine, two pills. You have very quick impact, or you have a very slow impact, but the other one is more controlled, the other one is less controlled. So I think at the end of the day, it is more on compromising which target you want to achieve, and that's not easy, especially if the circumstances are very different country by country. Like in Indonesia, I can say. For instance, in Indonesia, we are archipelago, we have 6,000 islands, we are talking different language, we are 250 million people, and then all of a sudden you want to have public CBDC with token. Then you have to provide internet for everybody, broadband for everybody, teach them a little bit about cryptography. It's just nonsense, not possible.
You only have to do that if you imagine this as a replacement, and I'm not imagining it as a replacement whatsoever. This is just an early, suggestion or proposal to, begin more actively experimenting. And the more open and public you are about it, the more, like this kind of conversation would not be possible or would not be happening, and more of those conversations would help to solve, to help that. So. Just one last word I would add is I can imagine that we have a very dangerous situation if what I'm suggesting does not come to pass. The economic warfare that's going on has certain flashpoints like Syria and those types of violent crises that we see are exactly related to these economic problems. If we don't find a way for the central banks don't find a way to interact with the world of cryptocurrency somehow, then it could become a very difficult and dangerous situation for certainly in those fragile parts of the world.
I totally agree with. I totally agree with your point. People are criticizing a lot of Petro of Venezuela without any kind of positive inputs. Like the fact that they have been trying so hard, to relieve from the crisis, and they came up with the idea to have a CBDC is huge effort in itself, and we have to give some credit to that rather than criticizing them. It's very difficult in Venezuela. It's like prices, as inflation like 6,000, and then you don't have any access to hospital. People are dying. And say again.
In this case, that's the central bank's fault. The same bank that
absolutely
is creating the sham is called
So I think I agree with you. In some countries, it can be a solution, but political consensus. In the country in crisis, usually you're also political crisis at the same time. Many aspects which out of control. And if you can control that in kind of more peaceful circumstances, then maybe it will be one best alternative for them to revive.
Yeah. It just gave me another idea. We really have to move on in the program, but thanks very much. This sector moves so quickly, so regardless of any type of political friction or how slow the rest of the world might be, there is a lot of momentum that is building from within this sector. Absolutely. So I think that any time that there is inertia and problems that cannot easily be solved, it might be a good idea to kind of look at what's happening, the developments here.
Agreed.
So thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.